when I think about mobile marketing, kind of see it as kind of, it covers everything from the sort of kind of campaign-led activity, which tends to be this SMS or mobile web experience, to more of a kind of brand experience, which often is either a mix of mobile web or app, and then to like, I suppose, brand service, brand utility, where there is, it's more app-led. And I suppose that's how I kind of see kind of mobile marketing. And so I have a number of questions. Is that, do you agree with me? And where do marketers and agencies play in that sort of kind of field?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's roughly the spectrum. I mean, I think that when I look around now and looked around at what my clients were doing 6 months ago when I was at an agency, I mean, there was a lot of people interested in the advertising part of it, which I don't know if it's that interesting, but it's there and there's eyeballs and advertisers will move to where the eyeballs are.
What would be classic advertising?
Well, I mean, like people were excited about iAds and mobile.
What's an iAd?
Sorry.
Go on, mate.
in ad within an iPhone app.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't actually know the details of the platform specifically,
Sure.
but it's roughly the idea is an ad that doesn't take you away from the app itself, that sort of launches, and Apple trying to create a better ad experience. I'm not sure that they've actually pulled it off, but it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of interest around that, and it seems to, I don't know that I've seen anybody really sort of pull it off well. I don't know that it's sort of taken off in a serious way yet.
Mm-hmm. I think that maybe because I'm coming from a nonprofit perspective, it just seems like it's not enough to just advertise or push information out to a consumer. I think you have to create real connectivity. I think consumers aren't content with just, I like that ad, it's flashy, there's a great celeb in it. I think they want value add, and like you said, it's enriching their life, it's utilitarian. What are you adding to my lifestyle versus just, I'm buying these jeans because they're cool and Brad Pitt's wearing them. And I think all this mobile technology provides those opportunities for brands to really become an enrichment to somebody's life. And I think in marketing and advertising a while back, it was all about, lifestyle branding and lifestyle marketing. And I think just take that to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, we just finished developing an iAd. It's kind of a fun platform to play in a little bit. But to your point, it is an ad, and ads by their nature do this at you. That's what advertising is. It's designed to attract attention, essentially. That's what advertising means. But I think of mobile as a subsidiary device most of the time. It isn't a dominant. I don't think of it as a channel in the same way I think of discrete media. I think of it as a return path. I think of it as a back channel most of the time. It's a way to respond to things I see in the world. And some of those things are ads, because ads are things you see in the world a lot, and they often require response. Or they often would like to invite response more accurately. And so it provides a way of doing that. I think most of the time I think about it as something that works with other things rather than something by itself.
That's scary for brands too. I mean, I worked briefly in the agency world, and I think it's very scary. Brands really want people to look at them from a purchase perspective, but they don't want people to look at them like from a holistic perspective. So now we're saying, come look at us, come connect with us, and I think brands are like, oh my God, what's going to happen when they start really looking more deeply at us through these back channels? Maybe?
We're kind of playing with the idea that your mobile device is actually more of like a remote control to your physical world. Yeah. I mean, because you are selecting what you want to do. It's an opt-in channel in a way. So I see these kinds of experiences for, we're talking about service and whether that service is utility or entertainment or what have you. We're always trying to be more relevant. In television and that's what planners do. They figure out how can a brand be more relevant to their audience. But with mobile devices, you can actually allow the I know you have taken issue with the word audience before, but so we'll just call them consumers or human beings. So a human being knows what's most relevant to them. So by allowing them to select the path into your advertising experience that has to be advertising or into your service, I think that's where things start to get really interesting.
I think I would absolutely agree. Somebody who's quite smart, I think, once said something like, any significantly relevant piece of advertising is indistinguishable from news, because it's so much something I want to know about that it's not perceived as being an enforced proposition. And I think the opportunity for mobile is to do that, basically. is to filter everything through the context that the phone allows you to understand, with your where and your what and your who and all that kind of good stuff, and kind of filter stuff so it's so relevant that it's like useful relevance.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think when Jerry Maguire came out, they cut the trailer for ladies and one for the guys. And one was all about the love story, and the other one was all about the action and the football. So I was like kind of thinking to myself, like, you know, if they just had these movie posters around, I mean, what if, I mean, we look at the tag we have over here, a mobile tag, I mean, why not use those mobile tags as channels? So, for instance, the bad example is if you're watching my movie poster and you're more interested in the love story, you can watch the trailer for the love story, or you can choose to watch the trailer for the action. You know, you're kind of self-selecting into your own experience.
I think also, though, I mean, what is interesting there, and I've been thinking about it, is sort of your phone as an identity device, too, right? So theoretically, your phone should know which one of those you want, right? Like, it knows a lot about you. I mean, and there's really obvious uses of that, right? So, like, it knows your location, and that's why location-based services exist. But, like, how do you start layering more and more things in there, more and more identity pieces, so you don't need to actually choose, right?
I kind of agree. You kind of want it to be a bit more like magic, because one of the challenges of the world now is that stuff isn't like magic. Like what we do as advertising used to be like magic a bit, because no one else could do it. Like movies could do it, and governments could do it, and we could do it, and no one else could do it. And now everyone can do it. So it's not magic anymore, and it's like it's just less impressive when you know, even if it's not as good, there's a spectrum of awesomeness. To really expensive awesome to terrible. But if you can do any terrible, it's still a thing you've done. You know? So if you can make film, everyone can make film now.
Right.
So if you can do things that surprise people, that feel a bit more like magic, I think that's cool.
Yeah, as long as they're often magic, so we don't end up in minority.
No, yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, I think yeah.
I mean, let's just talk about that opt-in. I mean, the idea of geofencing and you know, there's like the classic example of where the future is going to go has arrived. We walk past a Starbucks and you get hit with a coupon.
Yeah.
And
based band.
Yeah.
yeah. But any further comments about that? Or
I think probably what needs to happen is some kind of intermediary service or solution where in exchange for relevance you give up certain, I mean, kind of what happens in any service on the internet. Somebody really smart recently said that if you aren't paying for a service, you're probably the product being sold, which is true on Google or on Facebook or anything like that, because you are the product. In the same way with TV, you're the product. You're what's being sold, not the content to advertisers, essentially.
let's move a little bit away from marketing, branding, and just look at mobile experience, because there's a lot of great stuff happening, and I don't think often that's attached to a brand. You know, the businesses behind them, but obviously we could all list out a whole bunch of services that we love and we use and so forth. Maybe we can talk about some of the trends that are exciting you in the mobile space.
I mean, for me personally, I've been super excited about the sort of time-shifting thing that's going on with all the Instapaper and now readability, and just the ability to sort of take content that exists in one place and decide you're going to consume it in this other place, which is your mobile device. You know, I mean, the Kindle app is doing this super well by having a sort of a seamless experience between these different pieces, and you know, allowing me to read my Kindle book on any mobile device and decide that I'm then going to pick it up at home. But you know, and I think what Instapaper, if you guys haven't seen it, is just you hit a read later button and you basically save a whole article and it comes up on your phone and you can read it on the subway in my case. And you know, it's just, you take this experience that is actually much better while you're sort of focused rather than sitting there and working. And Boxy does this, not yet on the mobile, but with on your TV. If you have a Boxy box, you can hit watch later and take a YouTube video, and it puts it in this new sort of queue for you where you can watch it on your television. And that sort of stuff where you're kind of moving content between devices is what's exciting me the most as a consumer.
Okay. We might come back to it a little bit more. Anything else? What are you guys using?
Well, I mean, it is client work, but I wouldn't really call it marketing so much. But we've been experimenting with turning your mobile device into something that mimics that experience in the museum, where you kind of put on your little earpiece and you walk around and you stand in front of the Picasso or stand in front of the Mondrian, and you understand why Mondrian's more than a grid. So we were trying to, by using geolocation, we could actually serve up content about, for instance, this particular client is a music client. So we wanted to market the product in an organic way that's music enthusiasts, because it's their target audience, are people who are heavily into music. These are not Lady Gaga listeners, they're in top 40. These are people who get into the deepness, the richness, the history. And so being able to take all that great content and then filter it through location, that creates that relevance to the user, and it's something they want to get. And so it's, in a way, like taking the brand and making the brand, bringing the brand itself below the content and letting the content speak to the brand, doing it in an organic way rather than all shouty and like, we are the #1 place for music enthusiasts. Instead, you actually bubble up content that people want, and therefore they kind of just, in that experience, realize that this brand is the one who's providing the service for them, and it's the place for music
I like
enthusiasts.
to that point the catchphrase of ambient marketing. But there's this ambient, they'll know because that's where they're going for that content. I think it comes back to the experience. If you're able, whether you're a brand or a nonprofit or just a cool company, providing a unique experience that again is enriching their lifestyle, then the ambient nature of they're going to know that product or that brand because they sponsored that content, or they provided that content, or that's how they if they opted in to get that content from you. It's not a neon sign.
I think that's the point, isn't it? That's a bit of permission that it's important. Like, I kind of think of this stuff like hyperlinking on the real world. That movie Starship Troopers? You know how they present information in that movie, and at the end of every snippet they go, would you like to learn more? That's how I think about a lot of this stuff, which is, would you like to learn more? And if you would, you can. And you can click on it, search it, find it, content, whatever it is. And if you don't want to, you don't have to, because it's not a neon sign.
But is it working? I mean, is anybody clicking on it to learn more?
I don't know. I wonder.
I wonder too.
Because I don't know.
Well, I think people want to do more. I mean, I think it's, again, back to the whole consumerism thing. I think consumers expect more. So I feel like whether they want to learn more or they want to do more, if you're not giving me something to do, if you're not, and bringing it back to nonprofit, you see so many brands doing cause-related marketing now because, a jar of yogurt with a pink ribbon on it is going to sell 10 times more than a jar of yogurt without a pink ribbon because, again, consumers expect more. They want more.
How do you feel about that? Because I have this discussion with people, and it seems inherently to be better than not doing it.
We'll have that conversation on time.
Oh, okay, cool. Different discussion, right? It's interesting.
Good. One of the kind of trends that I've noticed is there's sort of different apps at different times. The sort of elevator app or the bedtime app or experience and so forth.
Yeah.
Anybody want to touch upon that?
Yeah, I mean, so that's something I've been thinking about that a lot for my product personally. But yeah, I mean, I think it's even device, right? So I've been thinking about it on a more device level, like the iPad as an evening app, right? Like everyone I know uses their iPad after 8. Like you're sort of like on the couch or in bed, and your iPhone or your phone, your mobile device is a sort of a snippet app, except for when it's a sort of transit app, right? And then so it's like 30 seconds or 15, 20 minutes, right? And these experiences are super different, right? And so you have your, you open Twitter for the 30 seconds you're in the elevator to see what's going on just because you're bored, but you play a game in the 15 minutes you're on the subway. And then, you get home and you read your, the daily, theoretically, on your tablet or something. I think that it's really interesting to think about how all these devices sort of fit into our day. And then, and then you have computers in there that sort of are there a lot of the time. And that's where I think it also gets interesting to think about how they all start interacting together, because you sort of always have your eyes on a screen, right? Like you're just never leaving the screen.
Sure. I suppose you also have like a travel situation. People might have just come with the iPad to Austin, and
Right. Yeah, and that's I think that's probably the other big catalytic, right?
Yeah, there's a concept I think I stole from somebody in academia, which is called plastic time, which is about this idea basically that mobile devices, they need to be optimized to be used in time that's plastic, so it expands or contracts to fill whatever gaps you have in your day. So it could be 20 seconds, it could be 15 minutes. But I think with the iPad thing, you're right, it's usually more considered. I like the iPad because it feels like soft technology to me. Remember the Chumby?
Yeah.
That thing was cool, but like it was more cool because it was soft than the actual device was cool, I kind of like computers in my bed, but computers don't fit in my bed because it feels weird. But the iPad doesn't feel weird to be in my bed. So it's like a different context where it's appropriate suddenly, like the kitchen or the bedroom, or you know what I mean? It just
Well, it was funny because in all the ads, you know, if you look at all the ads, there's always feet in back of the iPad. Like clearly that's the
telling you how to use it.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I can remember reading about Bill Gates' house like 9 years ago, and he kind of was a little bit ahead of that. Literally, every guest has some kind of tag in their pocket, and as they walk into a room, the art travels with them, the music travels with them. I mean, essentially, that's what we're trying to do, or we're moving toward, is creating like a world that's a giant Bill Gates house that doesn't cost $6 billion.
That's a really interesting point, actually. You're right, which is kind of, there was a lot of talk about convergence devices a long time ago, about the same sort of time when Bill Gates was getting his eye scanners. And the alternative to convergence would be divergence, literally, obviously. But you're right, you basically, to your identity point now, your phone simply becomes a little identity network system, which just links into whatever device you happen to be using and tells it that it's yours.
actually it's not. I mean, but it's not even your phone, right? Like it's there's sort of your phone being hooked up to the cloud, if you want to use the term, right? So it's like your phone is a connected device, and all these other devices are connected, and it's sort of like your brain sits up here, and it can just tap into it, right?
What happened to augmented reality?
I think it still exists. I've seen a lot of case studies about it.
Last year that was the thing. Where is it now?
I think it's at the wrong point in the hype cycle, basically. It kind of, like everything, it's novel and then not useful for a long time, and at some point it'll be useful again, but probably not for a while until everyone starts paying attention to it.
And there's stuff like Word Lens and
yeah,
things like that.
cool.
That's pretty. I mean, I haven't.
What does Word Lens do?
Word Lens is a translation app that you could just sort of, if that were in Spanish, you could stick it in front of that, and it would figure out what the words are. It would read the words, and it would translate it on your screen.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That's augmented reality.
Yeah, and I think in the mobile tagging we touch upon recognition because of things like Google goggles as well. You know, have this sort of this code, this tag. Will we go to that image recognition, or will we stay with these sort of physical manifestations? But I'll leave that for later. Let's talk about kind of get back into mobile marketing and kind of the development. I think kind of it could be maybe gaming experiences. We see that sort of kind of discussion taking place, gamification or games and mobile marketing. Can anybody touch upon that?
Touch upon gamification.
Or gaming. Do you do any work with GE with gaming experience?
We did a bit, yeah. When I was at Barbarian Group, we did build a mobile game, and I mean it's an interesting experience. Barbarian Group had built a lot of games, Flash games, right? A lot of games for the web, and it's just thinking about sort of how different, again, how different that use case is. Like when someone is sitting with their phone and sort of interacting with it, which is, sort of, it's a moment out of their day rather than a moment in their day, which is sort of when digital marketing has primarily been focused on sort of 9 to 5, right? Like digital marketing has been talking to people while they were at work for the most part. And you're sort of taking somebody's personal time, and so you have to sort of be more considerate and be more thoughtful. And so, yeah, I mean, and for GE, I think, what they were going for is just sort of creating an engaging and fun experience so that show they can, it was a hospital game, and it sort of is explaining what GE does as a company in sort of helping large hospitals figure out how to run themselves by explaining how confusing it can be to run a hospital. But yeah, that was, it's called Patient Shuffle. Patient Shuffle.
And we did, we're well known at UNICEF for our Trick or Treat campaign. Anybody trick or treated for UNICEF ever? So last year we wanted to take Trick or Treat into sort of the digital realm, and an app was created that was a jack-o'-lantern builder, and it was just our first test to see, how can we translate something that's a 60-year-old campaign into this sort of digital and mobile age. And it was really exciting to see kids get involved and parents sort of engage their children in something that wasn't just the fundraising element, but give them something else to do and raise more awareness. And then that led into an educational portal and various portals. But what's really exciting is now taking that to the next level and thinking about gaming that does educate about our programmatic work, our sanitation programs where, washing your hands can save a child's life, that kind of thing. So thinking about games, and we're talking to various agencies about games as education to really, again, get them more linked into our cause. And really, UNICEF is such a big org, so how do we explain all of the different things that we do? And games are something we're looking at to be able to do that.
Yeah. Games and gaming and stuff is a big topic, and they're different things, I think. Jane McGonigal is very good on this kind of stuff from the Institute of the Future. Her new book called... No, Jane McGonigal, she's a game designer and smart person in general. And her new book's called Reality is Broken, I think. I think of games like they kind of hack your brain, basically. Like really good games are the content equivalent of cheesecake. By which I think I mean, and bear with me if it doesn't make any sense, but cheesecake is really bad for you, but tastes delicious because we evolved when fats and sugars were super scarce, and so our bodies evolved the desire to make them taste good to us because they're really useful in small quantities to keep you alive when you can't get them easily, right? So cheesecake basically hacks that whole evolutionary system. So you've evolved for thousands of years in an environment where it's super scarce, these things, and they just put loads of it together in this delicious thing. You're like, because your body's telling you it's awesome. You can't, it's wrong, but it's telling you it's awesome, right? It's the same with games and how your brain rewards itself with like serotonin and oxytocin and dopamine and stuff. It provides structured reward in a really, really kind of linear way that life just doesn't do. And so that's what her point is in this book, that reality is broken, because reality doesn't provide the same kind of work-like rewards that would allow people to sort of feel good on a constant kind of achieving basis, So they're very powerful ideas, but they're also really hard games. Yeah. We're building a game at the moment. We're releasing our first iPad game out of this little shop called Spies and Assassins that we have inside KB and NBC. It's really fun thinking about game mechanics. But you sort of, making good games is really, really difficult, basically. Yeah. And you can't just go, we'll do a gaming thing. It's like, the thing about that is, if you could make Angry Birds Mr. Client every time, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. The other really tough part that I think people don't talk about with games is that payoff goes down and down, right? Mm-hmm. Like games, and so eventually you stop playing the game because it's no longer your brain isn't pumping out the good stuff. Right. And I think that's if you're selling games, that's not a problem, right? You've sold them. And there's another person to sell them to. But if you're a brand, I think brands are sort of thinking of these as like long-term investments, and games don't work that way.
With the possible exception of World of Warcraft.
Yes, which is sort of not a game, right? Like
you're right,
It's weird and it's social and it's different and it's kind of infinite.
Okay, I'm going to move the conversation.
Sure. Well, something that kind of we've been looking at, specifically, we don't actually develop games you play with your fingers and you get points and things like that, but we've been talking a lot about just applying that idea of a game towards life. I mean, I think the first time I noticed that location-based services like Foursquare are a game was when I was speaking to this girl at a baby party. And she was absolutely...
What's a baby party?
Baby parties where a bunch of adults stand around and talk about how they all have the supreme being.
Oh, cool. Right.
Living in their
I went to
house.
a shower recently. Is it like one of those?
Yes, basically. But she was just absolutely intent on becoming the mayor of this Equinox in West Village. She was battling it out with this other girl, and she was super pissed because she would go 6 days a week, and then she noticed the other girl started going 7 days a week. So. I mean, leveraging that kind of behavior, like if you start to think of it in terms of, not necessarily mobile experience, but interactive experience, like an ESPN-like thing. It used to be where you get your information about sports. Well, I think it's interesting to actually bring the user into that so that they can start to rank themselves and see how they are as a sports fan. So the more they comment, they earn social badges for being like, the most effusive person on ESPN, or they read the most articles, they kind of start to create this kind of cycle of the user kind of bringing themselves in, feeling like they're kind of almost like a citizen of it, but with this competitive nature. People, I mean, that's the other side of games, right? Competition. People are competitive, and people like, these kind of virtual examples of that competition. I think that's brands can do well to bring that over there.
Okay, thank you. To move the conversation into a slightly different area, let's talk about retail and mobile, because I think there's a lot of interesting things happening there. And obviously, as marketers, we, one of the main reasons to do marketing is to create that purchase. And there's, slightly outside the brand space, you see these great experiences, let's say Cashism, which is the app which allows you to take photos of yourself and share the photos with friends, get rankings, and there's Aisle Buyer, I think it's Aisle Buyer, which allows you to kind of know to buy directly when you're in the aisle, when you're looking at a product and so forth. Can we talk about the mobile experience in retail a little bit?
Yeah, okay. I think it's like, remember about 5-6 years ago when somebody, I think maybe PSFK in fact, told us all that Amazon had this app that lets you scan UPC codes and tell in Japan. It was like way before smartphones kind of existed, but like the very beginning of camera phones, I guess. And you realize at that point something weird is about to happen, whereby shops could stop being shops, kind of. They could become showrooms, if you choose to think of them that way. Obviously you can't, depends on immediate gratification if you want stuff there and then. They have different roles, you know. I think what it does is remind you that the system is always there and that lots of different options exist and interoperate, not to the exclusion of each other, but to different use cases. So if you're in a shop and you see something you want, you'll probably just buy it. But if it's really expensive and a high considered thing, you may go to the shop 2 times anyway, at which point you may look it up online, you may do that with your phone, and it might be a different vibe, you know?
Yeah, higher end things, I think that's where people want to be kind of sold on the craft behind it. And I mean, turning a shop into a showroom and taking the product out, I think was a little crazy. It sounded very interesting at the time. But I think what things like Tag or any other mobile tag can do is to kind of put the showroom on a little piece of paper that's attached to that excellent jacket by Brooks Brothers. So you can literally see a little 45-second documentary on why this jacket is worth $300 more, because this is the person who sewed it by hand, because of where they sourced all the fabric. Because, I mean, that kind of like the rich story behind the product, kind of that documentary-like feel. I think that helps people to make that considered decision and move forward. I don't know how that necessarily works for, like, say, dishwasher detergents and things like that, but.
And I don't know if IKEA is doing this or not, or if I just read a study where they were like, it would be great if there was a QR code on the box so you could see a video of how to put it together. Yeah, is that
I think I heard
happening?
the same thing. I'm not sure if it's.
It needs to, because I just got a bookshelf and I'm not quite sure how to.
I think they did it with sticky bits maybe.
Yeah.
I think maybe they did it with sticky bits. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's super useful, isn't it? So to your point, there are some things that need metadata. Some things you buy require. They shouldn't probably, but they require instructions to use and build and construct, and that metadata is super useful. Yeah. There's other metadata, to your point earlier about would you like to know more, that you just, I know what it does, it's not that, you know what I mean? I have no particular need for metadata on this object as yet.
Well, and not to get too ahead of ourselves, there's some great results from the agency challenge that you did that talk about linking the product to the cause. So, and I know we'll talk about that later, but there's some other layers that take point of sale and that aisle shopping experience and turn it into an actual charitable experience, and that's really exciting, and I'll save that excitement for later.
I think one of the interesting things I've noticed in Austin is the American Express tie-up with Foursquare. I don't know if you've noticed this, where if you register, you can save money. Basically, you go into one of their places and use your American Express card, and you get $5 back for the first $5 you spent. What's interesting for that is that American Express aren't trying to create their own app or create their own service. They're trying to create something that works with complements an existing popular service.
Yeah. I think to me on that one, what sort of the especially important message for sort of the brand is taking the onus off consumers for sort of figuring out how to manage that, right? Like, they make it really easy. You have an American Express card. You hook your American Express card up with Foursquare. You do these things you would do anyway, and they figure out the back end. I think, like, so much of sort of mobile is asking the consumer to, like Ferris was saying before, there was he saw an ad that said, download this app and then click a picture of this thing and then we'll tell you more, right? And like that seems to be the sort of general approach to how to do this stuff is like I've got to figure 16 steps out before I get to this content, which may or may not be interesting on the other end, and to really sort of pull it all together and take the time and sort of manage, you know, we have all these things that are really smart, and it's just too seldom to the brands and marketers actually sort of put them together themselves and do the hard work and take that off the consumer.
Yeah, and I think we're going to touch upon that in mobile tagging, kind of, you know, having an app that allows you to read various.
Yeah, but I think the point is it's really important actually because behavior is really hard to modify. Even though we work in marketing, and that's kind of what the job is actually. Some form of behavior modification is kind of crucial, otherwise they don't buy the stuff and no one makes any money and all that kind of thing. But it's much easier if you, to your point, piggyback on existing behaviors and don't ask things that are too onerous to people. Because, I mean, very famously, there was the adoption curve thing that you see in lots of presentations or whatever. This dude, Jeffrey Moore, wrote a book in like 2000 called Crossing the Chasm, which says everybody at South by is different, everybody's not at South by, basically. Everybody at South by probably will, if you ask them to download an app and have a click and do a thing, probably will give it a go because they're geeks and they're interested in doing things that are a bit hard to see what happens. They like playing with stuff. Other people tend not to as much. They like things that make their life immediately easier and better. And if they can't see a way to benefit in that instance, they probably won't bother.
And do you think that's that's a problem or a challenge? Is I feel like from a marketing perspective, or just from whatever you're trying to get people to do, it's like the shiny object syndrome, where it's like we've got to do this really cool rad thing, but your consumer base may not have a smartphone. I mean, there's still some people who don't have smartphones, so it's like in all of this, it's really cool at South by to be really techie and forward thinking. But I think the challenge that a lot, especially digital agencies that want to be innovative, you have to remember that tag that you put in the grocery store, you know, if your consumer base are moms with
let's quickly just talk
jitterbug.
about that. You know, that's the kind of flag people raise.
Right.
That, maybe 50%, maybe at the end of the year, 60% of people will have smartphones. You know, and how do you talk to the mainstream? How do you talk to the center, the middle of America?
I think there's two bits, isn't there? Which is there is definitely an argument that most people don't do what early adopters do, right? At the same time, most people aren't stupid or anything, which is also that it's kind of the unfortunate negative corollary of the same thought, which is the mass doesn't really get stuff. And what they do, obviously they do. They're hyper media literate, they're hyper technology literate. They've grown up in a world where they only ever had the internet. They kind of get this stuff. Do you know what I mean? They just maybe don't care as much as we do. At the same time, my challenge often is, because that's often an issue where from a reach and efficiency point of view, these kinds of initiatives tend to be inefficient. At the same time, if your brand has any elements to it that have things like innovation or a desire to be awesome, sometimes it's more important you do them and let people know about them than anyone use them.
Absolutely.
Because but it's true, because like far more people buy Nike sneakers than have used Nike Plus, but everybody who buys Nike sneakers thinks Nike is cooler because Nike Plus exists.
Exactly. It's perception.
That
Perception is reality.
Perception is value. People pay for
I
it.
love that idea.
Yeah.
Or technology that you can label upon yourself without actually interacting with it. It's fantastic.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a more digitally advanced person, even though I'm technically.
You can buy into a value system of thinking technology is awesome as part of what brands do, but not necessarily be asked to go running every day.
Well, it's like going to church at Christmas and saying you're religious.
But, yeah, again, yeah. You're buying into it.
So, I was speaking to Alex from Media Temple just before the show started, and he was saying one of the issues with mobile marketing agencies is the agencies don't know how to make this stuff. You might have, you know, Barbarian Group who've got years of experience of playing that area. I'm sure there's some shops in NBC who can do that, but there's plenty of other agencies who'd love to do this stuff, and there's a disconnect with app makers and everything else. Do you see that?
It's a big question. I think it's one of the big questions in advertising right now, in my opinion. Do advertising agencies want to make things or not? So we have been very focused on development resource. That sounds weird. So we have Android and iOS developers and platform developers, software engineers inside the agency now, because we think it's important that they at least play with other kinds of creative people. But historically speaking, the ad agency model is we don't make things, really. We brief companies, production companies to make things. So all the learning tends to reside outside the system then. I don't think it's a clear answer either way, because some things are too specialized, but we feel it's important to pull some of that back into, so technology to me isn't a production issue, it's a strategic and creative issue as well.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, it has to reside at least in part inside the agency.
Aaron, as you know, you work for a slightly smaller agency, comparatively maybe to what NBC or an NBC company. What do you face that kind of issue in terms of like, how do we get stuff done?
Thank God for freelancers, I think. My quickest
that's
answer.
in between solution.
So I mean, what we do is we just kind of expand and contract, and sounds like some kind of amoeba, but different colored amoeba, different week. I mean, because we're smaller, we're working on smaller projects, so therefore we don't need an entire production company. We need one specialist at a time. So that's kind of how we've approached it. But it is interesting you guys are building an in-house capability. That model, as you said, I mean, the ad agencies always kind of come up with the idea, and then you go over and you, excuse me, you brilliant, filmmaker, would you mind doing this 30-second spot for us? You're going to do it so much better than we can, so why not? So it's interesting thinking about that from
I think one of the big challenges in this, being someone who was an agency and now is a product, is agencies may sort of have trouble making things, but they have even more trouble owning products. Like agencies are not set up to answer emails a year later from someone who finds a bug in an app, right? Like there's no capability in-house for doing that. And I think that's going to be a real struggle for agencies to figure out how to develop, like, do you need to have customer support people if you have a product? Like, and that product lives for a brand, and then does a brand keep paying you to do that? Like, how does that, there's a lot of questions that agencies just haven't had to deal with before in sort of thinking about products versus campaigns.
Well, I think that started too, like the social media quandary of where does your social media live? And having been a social media strategist for the major agencies, we had 5 clients that we were managing with social, and it's like, is it our responsibility? It's the same thing. It's like, where do you draw the line of what, we're answering questions about a Facebook app, but it was developed offshore. It's a whole quagmire.
So you guys all work on the agency side. I'm just wondering, with all of this innovation, what you think clients, if you had to choose one thing clients could be better at doing to work together with all of these unanswered questions, what would you advise a client?
Well, I mean, off the bat, I would ask clients to have a more experimental mentality. Most clients are extremely reticent to do anything that's not proven. The problem with doing something innovative is that you're going to do it first, and so you're going to run into a whole mess of problems that you ordinarily wouldn't. There's a comparative, you don't have a structure that's been built for 20 years to support you. So that would be my main ask.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think if you do it in a way that's respectful of how intensely risk-averse corporations have to be, because essentially what corporations are risk modeling systems that manage capital in a really conservative way, right? And so I think you sort of go, the argument you always go is just give us a chunk of it and let's see what we want. You know what I mean? Don't worry about the rest of it, that'll be fine. But
well, this is our wish list.
Right, yeah, no, I dig you, I do agree. But.
Okay, one more question.
We're all here to hear about the future of mobile tagging, and I know y'all made a comment speaking to the consumer in the grocery store possibly having the tag there but not knowing what to do with it. I've already seen it here from another grocery store. They're starting to use it. Do you think the shift in social awareness of what tags are and what they're used for by the mainstream consumer is going to come from like Facebook or some other social media outlet making the awareness of what this is, and then instantly 500 million people know?
I think that the key is going to be integration. I think it might be about saturation and not using QR codes or Microsoft tags, as it were, in a silo. I think if you start layering it into a lot of different things you're doing, people start recognizing it and wanting, it becomes less of a shiny object and more of part of how you're going to relate to your audience or to your consumer. So I feel like it's not just one, like, we're going to push it out through Facebook. I feel like it's got to be layered into everything you're doing so that the consumer sees it and wants to take part in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think, because then in places and sort of checking in became kind of a grammar that we understood about location more so because of that, I guess. But I think when it becomes super useful, people will find out how to use it.
Okay, got one more question.
Sneaky way to put it.
So no time soon, but what's your opinion on near-field communication? Will they make physical tags irrelevant at some point down the road?
Well, I think credit cards are relevant first. NFC. Yeah, I mean, because credit cards are weirdly
Can you
anachronistic.
explain what near-field communication is?
NFC is like an RFID technology, which is sort of hyper-encrypted, so it allows you to do secure transactions without, like PayPal on MasterCard things, or the Oyster card if you've ever been to the subway in London, similar technology basically. I don't understand how we don't have already phones that do credit card stuff already, to be honest. I think it's only because of legacy systems in place that find it hard to work out how to fit together properly, that we don't already have them, because you can do it really easily with a sticker.
That also, I mean, the identity thing there is pretty amazing, right? Because then you do have a piece of identity that's tied to you that doesn't, I mean, like, it's funny, I have to carry around in my phone my little card to get into my building. You know, it's just like so ridiculous how many pieces we have. And that sort of stuff, you know, when you can layer all that on, and then you can tie that into these services, I think it'll be, you know, your phone really will sort of have the identity that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Okay, I have one last question.
Identity theft becomes a real problem.
Yes.
Exactly.
So one of the major trends in mobile has been monetization, and that each of these walled garden systems, whether Apple or Android, give you different pathways to monetization. And I'm really interested in seeing brands starting to charge for their applications like Kraft iFood or The Daily. And I think that's a really provocative stance for a brand to say you have to pay me for my app, for my brand. Where do you guys fit on that side of the fence, and how do you see about monetization in mobile?
I mean, well, The Daily is a funny example. I mean, yeah, I think that's a product. I mean, brands are not set up, like, I mean, part of the problem, I think, I don't know exactly what the answer is. I mean, I think it's the bottom line. I think that the struggle brands have with this is generally that sits in the marketing department, and so they're not set up to accept money. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing there that, like, makes them think about that. You know, I mean, it's interesting, when I was at Barbarian Group, I worked with CNN a little bit when they first launched their app. And their app was not free when they first launched it, which was, like, sort of a big deal for them. And I think they eventually did make it free. I think it's free now. But, you know, I think brands, the idea that you can create marketing that pays for itself is something that's really appealing. But it's, I think it's, again, a sort of structural issue inside the corporation, where it's just like, where does that live at that point? Is it a product? Does it belong in the marketing department? And those are always super hairy questions. You know, I mean, like, I think it's awesome, and if you've got something, people will pay for it. I mean, I think more stuff should be, people should charge for more things, right? People, I mean, generally, when you buy something, you feel like you need to get more value out of it, right? And that would be a really interesting concept that could go a long way for brands. It's just, I'm not sure that there's an ability in there to make it happen.
Well, I mean, it speaks like the whole idea of compete. Like, are we using devices to extend the service that the brand already offers to the phone, and therefore is that worth paying for, or is that worth having a free version and a tiered version that's, you know, for a premium user or what have you? Or are we trying to, you know, go in the old school market, change minds, you know, make people?
Yeah, I don't know how monetization is going to work. I think the app thing, the system around that whole thing, it probably won't last forever. Because at some point the idea of mobile web will go away, because there won't be a mobile web. There'll just be the web. It'll work on all devices. It'll be in some super awesome version of HTML that does everything and makes a P and all kinds of cool stuff like that.
7.
Yeah, right. Probably HTML7. I don't know. So that kind of thing will probably just go away. In some aspects, there'll be, to the earlier point, I guess, screens and the cloud. And the screens will talk to the cloud, however you want them to talk to the cloud. And they'll just, the idea of fluid content will fit screens, be appropriate for that kind of stuff. I do think, however, one of the bits of innovation I'm very interested in and not very good at, even though I used to be a management consultant, it was my job, is business model innovation, which is what I think the big trick is right now for lots of these things, is there's scope to experiment massively with how you charge for stuff. And I mean both as agencies and as clients and as products and as developers. There's loads of scope to go, it's a bit free or not very free or really expensive. Like the Wolfram Alpha app was $50 for a while. And I was like, that's crazy, isn't it? And then it was $5 for a while. And then you're like, what? How does that differ? I mean, because the values, all the cues around what can constitute value have been blown up a little bit. And so there's scope to really extend. That one very beginning app, do you remember that app when the iPhone first was, came out? It was $5,000. And it gave you a picture of a jewel on your screen, and people bought it. Some people bought a picture of a jewel for $5,000. Clearly, value is very, very relative, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
working out how to play with that seems super interesting to me, and if I was good at it, I would. But I'm trying to get good at it, I guess.